Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some fantasy books that I think have lovely friendships, and at the time that I'm filming this, it's not yet February, but because February is almost here, and because of Valentine's Day, and because of the fact that Valentine's Day then leads a bunch of people to talk about romances and character relationships that eventually are kind of will they, won't they, the best ships, all that kind of stuff, I just wanted to take a second to talk about the love of friendship, because friendship is great and it's really nice to see in books as well. So I wanted to highlight some of my absolute favorites, and it should be no surprise at all that the one that I'm going to start with is Fullmetal Alchemist, because Fullmetal Alchemist is perfect and I absolutely love the friendships in this. That is one of the reasons it's so fantastic. So Fullmetal Alchemist, as many of you probably know because you've heard me talk about it so many times, is about two brothers, Edward and Alphonse, who tried to bring their mother back from the dead using alchemy, and that went terribly wrong, which resulted in Edward losing an arm and a leg, and his brother Alphonse losing his entire body and having to have his soul attached to a suit of armor. So now these brothers are on a quest to try and restore their bodies, and I feel like that synopsis does not really capture everything you're going to get with Full Metal. And I also will add the first volume, maybe the first couple volumes, they give you a taste of what you're going to get, but it's not really until the ball gets rolling that you see the brilliance of the series, that you see the power of friendship, as silly as that is to say, as cheesy as that is to say. But truly, friendship is so much a part of this story. You also, of course, get fantastic relationships between the characters, whether they be romantic potentially or villainous or things like that. But Edward and Alphonse, they try so hard, especially Edward, to put this burden on themselves and to try and do whatever it takes. Edward is the older brother, so he feels so much guilt about what happened. He feels like he is responsible for the state that they are in, and he has this kind of chip on his shoulder, and he's absolutely ridiculous. And he is somebody who, anytime any kind of maybe more tender emotion is occurring, he instantly puts up walls, and he can be kind of obnoxious and ridiculous, but it is very realistic. And in doing this, in trying to constantly put everything on himself, you do see other people recognizing that in him and then kind of wanting to help, especially because Edward is not a selfish person. He is somebody who works really hard to help other people, even if he does so with a lot of flair and is not quiet about it. But people recognize that he is a good person, that he's doing what he can, that Alphonse is a good person and he's doing what he can. So you also get a great brother relationship between the siblings, but there's so many people along the way that join in and that want to do what they can to help these two brothers. On top of that, because you get such a huge cast of characters, it's not just about the friends that Edward and Alphonse make. You also see so many other characters and their friendship groups and the way that they're there for each other and the way that friendships will form even in the face of so many obstacles. It's just fantastic. Full Metal is so good. Next up, we have the book Raybearer and its sequel Redemptor. So it is a duology, just two books, and this is a young adult story that follows a young girl who her mother made a deal with essentially a genie to try and have a child. And this resulted in her having power over her own daughter because of the way the magic works and the way that with the genie you kind of have this wish granted to you. It kind of applies to her daughter as well. And so the mother is now trying to pull on that magic to have her daughter commit a certain act on her behalf, and that act involves murdering someone. Obviously, our main character, Tari Sai, is not a fan of this plan, but the magic that is sort of forcing her forward is something that she can't really compete against. But in getting to know the person, or at least in getting to a position where she can get to know the person she's supposed to kill because she needs to have close proximity, she ends up developing a friendship with them and a friendship with a lot of other people as well. And she now has to try and block out that magic and do what she can to not fulfill this wish of her mother's. You also don't know why her mother has this really morbid, awful wish, but that is a mystery in the book that you uncover as you read. I don't often see stories that do contain a romance have the friendship aspect still be at the forefront, but they really are in this story. Anything that Tari Sai tries to do, she knows that she has her friends there with her. Her friends support her, her friends push her, her friends are there to guide her, her friends are there to protect her, and it is really beautiful to see. The main friendship between herself and another character. I really liked the way that the author wrote their friendship. It's very sweet, and they just accept each other wholeheartedly for who they are. It's just adorable, and this story can be quite dark, but that friendship, I feel like, is that little spark of hope throughout the story. After that, we have the Goblin Emperor. So I feel like for most of the story, if you pick this up, you will not maybe initially be thinking about friendship. It's probably not as obvious as the friendships that you see in Raybearer, but so much of this story is about feeling lonely and being alone, and how the people around you kind of become your friends through it. It's so sweet. And the story has some dark moments, and the story has some heaviness to it. If you don't know, the Goblin Emperor follows a young man named Maya who never expected to be a important figure in politics, but an event occurs that results in the death of everybody in line before him, and now suddenly he is the emperor. And the emperor lives a very lonely, isolated life, especially Maya, because he was cast out of society for being part goblin. And so his father really didn't want anything to do with him, but also recognized politically he can't just have his own child murdered or have him sent to the wilderness or something. So he kind of has him raised properly by someone who is familiar with the courts. But this certain someone is unkind to Maya, who only really deals with him because he has to. And so Maya grows up with no one. He has no friends, he has no family, and suddenly he's in this position of power and once again does not have an opportunity to get close with anyone because, of course, this is a very political fantasy, so getting close with anybody could be seen as favoritism. Or if you get close to somebody who is a woman, in his case, he's a man, so if he's getting close with a woman, that might look a certain way to people who want their daughters to be considered to marry him and all these things. So he's so closed off from everyone, and he just is the sweetest, and he's so kind. And he's just a young man who wants that companionship, who wants to feel a connection with someone. And so toward the end of the book, there is a moment that is just so adorable, and it involves friendship. And it is just, it's so heartwarming. And it was strange because so much of the book I was like, man, I feel so bad for Maya. And so much of the book I was thinking, wow, the politics are so intense. But it was strange to me the way this little like seed of friendship bloomed into something that ended up being one of my favorite aspects of this book. Like I said, it's not as big of a deal as something like the friendships in Raybearer, but it is there, and it is sweet, and it is just so wholesome. Next up, we have the Stormlight Archive. Honestly, this video probably wouldn't really feel complete to me if I didn't mention Stormlight, because I love Bridge 4. Broken record, I feel like every Stormlight fan loves Bridge 4. And also, I love the relationship between Kaladin and Syl. If you know absolutely nothing about Stormlight Archive and this specific character of Kaladin, Kaladin is someone who, through some circumstances that you learn more about as you're reading, he ends up as a slave, and he ends up as something called a bridgeman specifically. They are individuals who have to run these bridges out in front of these armies that allow the armies to cross over the chasms in this one area where they are warring. The bridgemen are, because they are slaves, they are not given armor. It's pretty much a death sentence if you are assigned to a bridge crew. And Kaladin knows that his life is probably ending soon. But he is determined to do everything he can to make life as good as it can possibly be, not just for himself, but for the other men assigned to his bridge, which would be Bridge 4. And the efforts that he makes initially are not really recognized, and a lot of people don't care, but Kaladin, part of the reason so many people love Kaladin is because he goes so far above and beyond what is expected of anybody to do what he can to make life better for those around him. And the way that other people start to see that and the way they respond to it and the friendships that form, it actually, can you tell it gets me emotional to think about? This is why I love Kaladin so much. He's so great. But anyway, he does so much for them, and you kind of get to know about them. You find out not just as you're going through the story about Kaladin's past, but about their pasts as well. And you're seeing the way that life has been unfair and how life has treated them, but the way that they're banding together to make life better for each other. So it's not just Kaladin trying to make life better for them, but it results in all of them having this very lovely, sweet friendship between each other amidst a terrible situation. And then you have Syl. And Syl is just this little sparkle of adorable cuteness, and she is precious, and the things that she does to try and make Kaladin happy and to try to be there for Kaladin and to make fun of Kaladin and to mess around with Kaladin. She's adorable, she's so sweet, and the relationship between her and Kaladin is just, it's one of my favorites. It's a strange one because you're like, do I call it a animal companion? Because she's not an animal, but is it a really mythological creature? I guess kind of. She just feels like a little person. And it's an interesting dynamic, but it's a great friendship, and her friendship with Kaladin and Kaladin's friendship with the other members of Bridge 4 is just absolutely fantastic. The last two would be Monsters We Defy and Legends and Lattes. So both of these do have a very small romantic subplot. I would say the one in Monsters We Defy is a little bit more significant than the one in Legends and Lattes, but they also have a lot of friendship in the story. And the reason I'm kind of grouping both of these together is because I think that this is kind of almost the people we interact with in pursuit of what our goal is kind of become our friends along the way. And both of these do that very well. So in Legends and Lattes, we have a woman named Viv. She was a battle-hardened orc who has decided that she's done with that life and she's ready to do something that she can find happiness and fulfillment in. And that to her means starting a coffee shop in an area where nobody knows anything about coffee. They don't know what coffee is, and she doesn't really know what it is to run her own business, but she is going to try. And the people that she meets along the way, the people that she kind of employs, or the people that she works alongside, or the people that have her back, or the people that used to be her friends and she thought they wouldn't be her friends now that she's gone down this different path in life, but they're still there for her. All of those things are so sweet, and I know I've said this word multiple times, but so wholesome. And then in Monsters We Defy, so the setup of this one is actually kind of dark. There are people that are going missing, some of them that return. Clearly there's something different about them, and they don't seem quite themselves. Some people don't seem to be returning, so it's almost to some degree like a murder mystery. And our main character is someone who is trying to do what she can to determine what happens to these people. And in doing this, there are other people who join her, so I've described it many times as like a cozy heist. And in having all these different people that you get to know, you learn about their past, and then they kind of get to know each other. I just really enjoyed the dynamics between those characters. It's not necessarily something like Bridge 4 level of get to know these characters, because it is a little more plot driven, and the circumstances aren't nearly as tragic necessarily for our main characters, but I still think that I really like seeing a story where as the plot progresses and the characters get to know each other, these friendships are forming. I just think it's really sweet to see. That's it for some fantasy with friendships that I really, really loved. Let me know what some of your favorite friendships in fantasy would be, and then also if you'd like me to do this video again in the future, I would be happy to do so. Just let me know. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.